Welcome into Locked On Phillies. The Phils take on the San Francisco Giants, and we'll preview the rest of the regular season schedule for your Fightins on today's Locked On Phillies.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, this is Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas. I've been talking Phils baseball for years over on the radio with 97.5 The Fanatic. Was up early doing that again with the John Kincaid Show at 6 a.m. this morning. And now I'm happy to be here with you as your host of Locked On Phillies. I want to thank you, as always, for making Locked On Phillies your very first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now, the Phillies had an off night last night. No new news as they prepare to play the San Francisco Giants. So I imagine they traveled up to San Francisco yesterday, and then they went ahead and had a nice off day in the Bay Area to spend a little bit of time sightseeing. Maybe they went to Alcatraz. Maybe they saw the Golden Gate Bridge. Maybe they saw that one street that's all windy that I don't know the name of. I feel like it's called like Utah Street or something. I don't know why. Maybe I'm just thinking of Johnny Utah from Point Break because I watched that the other night. Either way, a nice off day for the Philadelphia Phillies to get everybody rested and set back up. And now a showdown with the San Francisco Giants, a 3-game series. And we previewed the series in yesterday's episode. So if you want to go click back to that, check out yesterday's episode and we'll look at the pitching matchups in the series. But now we zone in on game 1. Again, if you don't remember the pitching matchup for tonight's game, it is Kyle Gibson facing off against Alex Cobb. Now, tonight's start, 10:15 p.m., and it's an Apple TV Plus game. So the good news for the Phillies is on streaming games, where only like a quarter of the fan base can watch them, which is really dumb by Major League Baseball. And especially on a Friday night when the young audience you're looking for at 10 p.m., like myself, is going to be out at a bar anyway. Yeah, not the smartest game to have on Apple TV Plus, but hey, that's baseball, constantly getting in their way of trying to grow the game. But anyway, the good news about the Apple TV Plus games, if you haven't seen my Twitter account, is if the Phillies play well, awesome, the game counts. If the Phillies don't play well and they lose, well, it's just available on streaming and those games don't count. Obviously, that's not the real case when it comes to the standings, but that's how I rationalize Apple TV Plus games. The game that was on Peacock earlier for NBC. Yeah, those games are kind of annoying to find and annoying to watch, but what are you going to do? That's what we've got for tonight's game. The other 2 games of the series, both day games, both start at 4:05 Eastern for tomorrow's game and Sunday's game, and the Philadelphia Phillies will be available on their regular channel. So that'll be good to have them back. But tonight's matchup between Kyle Gibson and Alex Cobb is on Apple TV Plus. That pitching matchup looks to be in the Phillies' favor just because of the little bit bigger sample size you have from Kyle Gibson, a little bit better performance so far this year from Kyle Gibson. The numbers say that Alex Cobb has been a little bit better, but watching the two guys, Kyle Gibson is the more talented pitcher. He's just been less consistent this year than you would like him to be as a Philadelphia Phillies fan. Hopefully, good Kyle Gibson is out there tonight. The current matchup predictor is giving the San Francisco Giants a 56.3% chance to win tonight, 43.7% chance for the Philadelphia Phillies. Apparently, ESPN Analytics does not agree with me that Kyle Gibson is the better talented pitcher when compared to Alex Cobb. And it's also a look at the lineups. Now, here are some of the players to keep an eye on for the San Francisco Giants as they get squared up with your Philadelphia Phillies out there in San Francisco. Now, batting average leader for the team out there in San Francisco is Thairo Estrada, second baseman. He's batting .260, so you don't have many guys on this Giants roster that are really getting on base at a ridiculous clip. Wilmer Flores is batting .246. Mike Yastrzemski is barely batting over 200. Brandon Crawford, who had a great resurgent year last year, he's only batting .226. Jock Peterson is probably their all-around best hitter at the dish. He's batting .263, and he also leads the team with 20 home runs, but that pales in comparison to the number of home runs Kyle Schwarber has put up. Part of that is the ballpark. and the weather in San Francisco and everything like that. But make no mistake, Jock Peterson is probably the most dangerous guy that you're going to see. Darren Ruff actually hasn't been bad for them. You'll remember Darren Ruff from here in Philadelphia. Now, Darren Ruff, I believe we're going to go ahead and take a look at, though, is no longer with, I was pretty sure he had been moved to the New York Mets at the trade deadline. So he was good for them, but San Francisco being however many, 7 games under 500, he moved. So that's a hole in the lineup that is going to be filled by Brandon Belt, who's batting .213 and has a little bit less of an ability to leave the yard, only 8 home runs on the year to Darren Ruff's 11. And Darren Ruff had 100 total bases. Brandon Belt only has 89 so far this year in 254 at bats. So, yeah, that trade opens up a little bit for the Phillies. Evan Longoria's out there now. Tommy LaStella's there. Lamont Wade is out there. Lamont Wade, a Maryland product that actually, you know how I moved rooms. Well, my previous roommate, one of my best friends growing up, he was a starting catcher for the University of Maryland for a couple of years, DH for them as well. He played with Lamont Wade. He played with Brandon Lau of the Tampa Bay Rays down there. So Lamont, a nice player who's ended up making some waves at the major league level. Some of these names are guys that can play, but when you look at the star power and the ceiling of the two lineups, when you hear names like Wilmer Flores, Tyro Estrada, Mike Yastrzemski, Brandon Crawford, Jock Peterson, Darren Ruff, Luis Gonzalez, Brandon Belt, Austin Slater, Joey Bart, and then you hear names like Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, Rhys Hoskins, Alec Boehm. Like, one of those lineups just sounds better. One of those lineups just feels like they have more ability. And when you look at the two teams, well, the record indicates that the Phillies are the significantly better baseball team. I got to give the nod to the Phillies in this series because they're the more talented baseball team. But this is going to be a sneaky hard series. We'll talk in the next segment about how the schedule gets easier coming up, and we'll go through their strength of schedule and everything like that. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss that. But even though this is a series that you look at like, okay, this shouldn't be too difficult of a series win for the Philadelphia Phillies, this is one of those sneaky, tough places to play in San Francisco. And then you've got the whole Gabe Kapler angle. Now, Gabe Kapler has not been as good this year for the San Francisco Giants as he was last year, but still we talked about it in Toronto when the Phillies played the Blue Jays in the midst of firing their manager. They fired their manager after game 1 of that series. So Toronto came out and smoked them the next day. You've seen some like emotional games where a player has returned from the injured list and things of that nature. Make no mistake, Gabe Kapler, when he sees the Philadelphia Phillies on his schedule, sees the team that fired him a couple of years back and didn't give him what he probably thinks and what some people in the city think was a fair shot. Now, we're very happy with Rob Thompson, but you can see how Joe Girardi, Gabe Kapler's actual replacement, played out. So, yeah, Gabe Kapler probably feels that he has more to prove in these type of matchups with the Philadelphia Phillies to kind of show that this franchise made a mistake letting him go when they did. So that's another thing. Not that the manager makes a difference. You're just going to sit there and say, oh, yes, well, they were presenting beautifully. Oh, I love the way Darren Ruff presented. He presented beautifully. And then he's going to get his coconut oil or whatever the heck he does out there in San Francisco. I'm glad I don't have to deal with his press conferences anymore here. But the point is, this is a grudge match for the manager. He's going to rally the team. And they're a more talented team, I think, than their record shows. Even though they're only 7 games below 500, it's not like they're the dreck of their division or anything like that. Just a tough division and a regression year for a team that was out over their skis last year. All of this to say, don't sleep on the San Francisco Giants being a very tough opponent for the Phillies over the next 3 games. And the Phils are going to have to show up. If they do win this series, like I expect them to, it will be a quality series win. And it'll rely not as much on the pitching because the pitching matchups are pretty even, but the Philadelphia Phillies lineup's ability to get to the guys that they're going to face this series, being Alex Cobb, and then they'll also face Rodon in the series ender, Carlos Rodon, and Jacob Junis is the one that they're going to see in the middle game. So it's Cobb, Junis, Rodon. Tough matchups for the Phillies. They're going to have to fight to pull this series out. But looking at the upcoming schedule, like we will coming up in the next segment, yeah, you see why the Phillies still have one of the easier schedules in baseball when you look at strength of schedule. And after this road trip, there's a big run leading up to a tough finishing stretch. We'll discuss all of that next and how the Phillies need to take advantage on the next segment of Locked On Phillies. All right, are you one of those people that thinks it's okay to drive stoned? What's the worst that could happen? You end up driving below the speed limit? It's no big deal, right? Wrong. You can't drive stoned. The truth is your reaction time slows way down when you're high. You not only put yourself in danger, but everyone around you. Talk about a buzzkill. Stop kidding yourself. It's not okay to drive high. If you've been using marijuana in any form, doesn't matter, smoking, edibles, any of that stuff. It's becoming more and more prevalent in society today. You can get it more and more places. More and more states are legalizing it. And that's fine with me. Just don't drive stoned. Don't use it. Do not get behind the wheel after you use marijuana. If you feel different, you drive different, drive high, you can get a DUI. We don't want anyone to hurt themselves or anyone else or cause wrecks or cause problems. Be smart. It's just like drinking. If you've done it, don't drive. Okay, let's preview the remaining part of the schedule for the Philadelphia Phillies. We're coming down the home stretch, and by a quick count, the Philadelphia Phillies have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 series remaining after the San Francisco Giants series. So technically 10 because they haven't started their series in San Francisco yet. But 10 series remaining counting San Fran, 9 series remaining after this West Coast road trip concludes this Sunday. And that means it's crunch time for the Philadelphia Phillies, who are chasing down a playoff spot for the first time in over a decade. The Philadelphia Phillies main Twitter account just tweeted out an hourglass with a Phillies logo baseball in it. It said the hunt for Red October is on. It's absolutely right. It's right around the corner. And the Phillies, well, they're going to play 5 games in October at least. 6 games, 3 against the Nationals, 3 against the Houston Astros. But we want them to play meaningful October baseball games that are win or go home, playoff games. And the road to get there, well, it's not as easy as it was when we looked at the second half as a whole. We knew consistently the Philadelphia Phillies, when you looked at the remaining strength of schedule for Major League Baseball teams, had one of the 5 easiest schedules in baseball. Well, you look at it now. Shout out to our friends over at Tankathon, who were big when the Sixers were in the middle of the process, and we were constantly looking at draft lottery potential for the Sixers to get the number 1 overall pick. And they ended up with my guy here, Joel Embiid. Yeah, that's what we normally use Tankathon for, but this is way more fun looking at strength of schedule and the potential for a playoff run. Well, the Philadelphia Phillies, you're used to seeing them as like the 5th easiest schedule in baseball. That now belongs to the Cincinnati Reds. Let's go 5 more. Houston, Atlanta, Chicago, Cleveland, Kansas City. Yeah, the Philadelphia Phillies have the 11th easiest schedule in baseball. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 teams with easier schedules than them, including the New York Mets, who have the easiest schedule the rest of the way. The Atlanta Braves, who have the 8th easiest schedule in baseball the rest of the way. Yeah, it's not... And the St. Louis Cardinals, who are still kind of in the conversation because they're fighting the Brewers off for the NL Central Championship. They have the 2nd easiest schedule in baseball, just behind those New York Mets. So the Phillies' road is a little bit tougher when you look at this small segment of the season schedule that is made up by these final 10 series. And it's broken up rather interesting. It's not like tough series, easy series, tough series, easy series. The Phillies have an easy stretch here over the next 9 games following their trip in San Francisco, and then they have a really tough stretch, a little bit of a breather, and then they round out with a difficult series with Houston. So here's how the rest of the schedule goes. The Philadelphia Phillies will play the Miami Marlins for 3 games at Citizens Bank Park starting on Tuesday. They have Monday off for Labor Day. Nice little day to enjoy the holiday for them and for us as Philadelphia Phillies fans. Then they have the Washington Nationals at home. That should be a 3-game sweep. That team is a AAA team. Then they go to Miami for 3 more games. So in a 9-game stretch, you play Miami 6 times, Washington 3 times. You should win like 7 of those 9 games. It would be upsetting if they don't. Then you travel to Atlanta to see the Braves, who are unbelievable. That's a series that the Phillies normally play the Braves well, so you expect them to give it a run to maybe win that series, but it's tougher. Then you play the Toronto Blue Jays, this time at home, so you don't have to worry about vaccination status, but that's a tough series. The Atlanta Braves come to town to Citizens Bank Park for 4 games. And I'm going to be honest, that's the series that is making or breaking this Philadelphia Phillies playoff run. Thursday, September 22nd to Sunday, September 25th. Atlanta 4 times, 1 game on Fox, 1 game streaming on ESPN Plus. That's just additional. You can get it on the regular channels anyway. But those are 4 games at Citizens Bank Park that will be the biggest 4 home games of the year, because they're the last 4 home games too. They'll play Atlanta for 4 at home, and then they'll go to Chicago to face the Cubs. Those are winnable games. Don't let the sweep that started the second half worry you about the Chicago Cubs. The Phillies should, and I believe will, win that series with Chicago. Then you play 4 games in Washington. So a nice oasis in the desert of 3 series that are Atlanta, Toronto, Atlanta, and then ending with Houston. Well, smack dab in the middle, you get 3 against Chicago, 4 in Washington against Washington. And those 4 games, if the Phillies do falter against Atlanta, the 4 games in Washington are a great make up that deficit spot. Crush the Washington Nationals from September 30th to October 2nd. And then on my birthday, October 3rd, you head out to Houston for the final 3 games of the regular season. 3 in Houston against a team that the Phillies are kind of hoping are already locked into their seeding. The Yankees' late slide has actually played into the Phillies' favor in that the Houston Astros, well, now they're looking at a chance to have the American League's best record, be settled in as the top seed, and maybe rest some guys as they get ready for the playoffs. That would be ideal. So we'll look at that, and we'll hope that the Houston Astros sit some guys down in that series to make it easier for the Phillies. But still, that's going to be a tough fight to get the Phillies ready for playoff position. It's not an easy road anymore. It was, and it's got the Phillies in a great position, so they took advantage of the easy road. But now, hey, they got to roll up the sleeves and get to work playing some tough baseball teams again. Starts tonight with a sneaky tough team in the San Francisco Giants. Then you have a little bit of an easy stretch for 3 series, and then it's game on. So you look at all that, and you look at where the Philadelphia Phillies are in the standings. It's starting to get like, you know how I keep saying that they're, to me, a lock playoff team. Like, I absolutely see them being in the playoffs. I think they make it. I think the schedule is easy enough that they do it. I still feel that way. But now we're at the point of the season where it feels like every game is more magnified regardless of what the standings say. And the Phillies got to keep winning, and there's no time to make up for missteps. There's no getting swept by the Chicago Cubs again in 3 games, like a bad team like that, and coming back from it if it's the second to last season series and you need it. So the nerves are starting to kick in for me. I'm sure they're starting to kick in for the players, and you have to hope that they've learned from collapses of the past and they'll put themselves in a position to succeed this time. I believe Rob Thompson will do that. I believe this team is talented enough to do that. Just, they're going to have to come through. So we'll be watching every game with bated breath, hoping that we get Red October again. And in that same vein, I have a Red October question for you that I want to pose coming up next in Off the Poll. Since this is our Friday episode, we'll post Off the Poll. We'll have it run throughout the weekend, and we'll go ahead and let you know the results of that in our episode on Monday. But that'll be how we round everything up. Coming up is introducing our poll question for the Labor Day weekend on Off the Poll, and then we will wrap up Locked on Phillies, at least today's episode. Okay, here's what I want to ask for Off the Poll. Now, first, if you're a new listener, viewer, subscriber, anything, thank you for joining us on Locked On Phillies. And here's what Off the Poll is. Now, my Twitter account is down here on your screen if you're watching on YouTube at ConnorThomas975. We also have at LO_Phillies, which is the main Twitter account for everything Locked On Phillies. And that's where I post our poll question. And we call the segment Off the Poll because it's a play on words. When you hit the ball off the foul pole in baseball, obviously it's a home run. Hope this segment's a home run. I've made all the cheesy jokes in the world before, but that's the name for the segment. It's 2-parter. Today's episode, I'm going to pose the question, and then I'll leave it out there in the Twitter sphere for everyone to respond to. And then when we get all the responses, I will tell you how I feel. So I'm not going to give you my opinion on this, but I'm going to go ahead and post the question, get your opinion, and then I'll respond after, because I don't like to poison the well of what option you all are going to vote for out there. Today's Off the Poll, though, I want to be centered around the Philadelphia Phillies' ability to make the playoffs. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire right now. And I get the benefit of seeing this weekend series play out and see how it plays. Now, I kind of already gave away my answer in the last segment, what I was just talking about right before we switched over to off the poll. But hey, who knows? Maybe I could change. I've been known to flip flop before. I want to know from you, though. Standing right now, 10 series remaining, and it'll be 9 by the time that we get to this on Monday, because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday we'll see the 3 Giants games be played out there in San Francisco. But as it stands right now, do we get a red October? Do the Philadelphia Phillies make the playoffs for the first time in a decade? Your gut feeling right now, simple: yes or no. I'm going to guess that 77+% are saying yes. But hey, I don't know. Maybe that Diamondback series turned a couple people off. We're really getting into, if I'm feeling nerves, people who have been waiting for a collapse all year are definitely feeling nerves, feeling like we could be going down that path again of a late September collapse for the Philadelphia Phillies. I'm interested to see where the mentality of this fan base is going into this final home stretch of the season with some tough series and some easy ones and a month's worth of baseball. Maybe literally a month's worth. What's today's date? September 2nd, I think it is. Yeah, so a month and 3 days worth of baseball left. Yeah, I want to know where your head's at heading into the stretch run so I can get a feeling on how the fan base feels. So that's off the poll. Again, it'll be posted at LO_Phillies on Twitter, and I'll retweet it from my account at Connor Thomas 975 on Twitter. Please follow all those accounts and make sure you're rating, reviewing, subscribing. Hit the little bell in the corner on YouTube so you get the notifications of when a new Locked On Phillies is posted. You're not going to want to miss them as we go down the stretch run. If the team's got to be zoned in for the stretch run, I got to be zoned in on Locked On Phillies, and you got to be zoned in on all the content we're putting out. So we're all ready for what's hopefully going to be a playoff run for your Philadelphia Phillies. So lock in on all of our social media. Make sure you're catching us every day. I want to thank you one more time for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022. It's an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The Eagles, right around the corner. They play in a week. A week from this Sunday is the Eagles' first game on the 11th of September. That's when week 1 gets going. Well, it's the Sunday. They'll play Thursday, September 8th will be the first game of the NFL season. I believe that is Los Angeles Rams versus the Buffalo Bills. A great game there. You're going to want to see everything going on with the NFL season. And the local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, are all combined into one ultimate NFL preview. So search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app or on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And continue to check out Locked On Phillies day in and day out. We got great stuff coming up for you as we head down the stretch run for hopefully the first playoff berth in a decade. That's all I've got for you for today. And I'm going to give you a bonus weekend episode with Labor Day weekend. I'll be hanging around the city. I'll be getting some stuff done here at the new apartment. So we'll get another episode out for you at some point this weekend. That's all for today, though. And I will talk to you next time on our next episode of Locked On Phillies.